Today, we're unpacking a topic that affects every single one of us: oil prices and why they're so crucial to the global economy. From the price we pay at the pump to the hidden costs in our groceries and even the clothes we wear, oil has a massive impact. Stick around to learn how oil prices shape inflation, economic growth, and our shift to cleaner energy sources. Oil isn't just fuel. Sure, we think about it when we fill up our cars or when airplane tickets get more expensive, but oil is embedded in almost everything around us. Petroleum products are used in the production of everyday items like plastics, fertilizers, clothing, and even medications. And because oil is a feedstock, energy source, and transportation fuel, any change in oil prices ripples across these industries and affects costs worldwide. Imagine oil as the lifeblood of the modern economy. This means that when oil prices go up, it's not just transportation that's affected. It impacts manufacturing, agriculture, and even the cost of renewable energy products like solar panels. Economic growth and demand. Demand for oil is strongly linked to economic growth. When economies are doing well, demand for oil rises. Think more cars on the road, more flights, and more goods produced and transported. The COVID-19 pandemic threw this into chaos, with demand for oil plunging in 2020, even sending prices below zero for a short period. But with the post-pandemic recovery, oil demand has surged back and even surpassed pre-pandemic levels. As economies reopened, so did our appetite for oil, driving prices up. For instance, oil prices were around $20 to $30 per barrel at the height of the pandemic, but then shot up to nearly $100 as the global economy bounced back. Oil supply, however, doesn't adjust as quickly to rising demand. OPEC, the group of oil-producing nations, has gradually increased production, but they're cautious about oversupplying the market. Also, increasing oil supply isn't as easy as flipping a switch. It can take years or even decades to start producing from new oil fields. This lag in supply, combined with cautious investment due to economic uncertainty and pressure for green investments, creates supply shortages that drive prices up. A good example of this is the US shale industry, which ramped up production in the 2010s, but slowed down recently due to high costs and the push toward renewable energy. Oil prices are also highly sensitive to geopolitics. Conflicts in oil-rich regions, like the Middle East or tensions between Russia and Ukraine, can disrupt supply and make markets nervous. When the market fears that a conflict could impact oil supply, prices rise in anticipation, as we saw during the Russia-Ukraine crisis in early 2022. Oil isn't just a factor in transportation costs, it's a part of almost everything we buy. This means that when oil prices rise, we feel it not just at the gas pump, but also in our grocery stores, in the price of electronics, and more. When oil prices increase, producers and manufacturers face higher costs, which they often pass on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This is a driver of inflation. Imagine the journey of a simple item like a loaf of bread. The tractor that harvested the wheat, the trucks that transported the flour, and the oven used to bake it all rely on oil-based energy. Each step becomes more expensive when oil prices rise, making that loaf of bread more costly for you. While oil accounts for just 3% of global GDP, its role in so many products makes its impact on inflation significant. Oil price fluctuations have different impacts on oil importing and oil exporting countries. For countries that rely on oil imports, higher prices are tough. They increase costs across industries and can slow down economic growth. But for oil exporting nations, high prices can boost their economies. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia, for example, see high oil prices as a win because it increases their revenue and helps fund their budgets. In fact, during times of high oil prices, oil exporting countries often see budget surpluses, which they can invest in infrastructure or save for future downturns. On the other hand, oil-importing nations, like India or Japan, experience economic strain and often see a decrease in spending power among consumers. When oil prices are high, it makes renewable energy options like electric vehicles and alternative fuels more attractive. But switching to renewables is complex because they're not a direct substitute for oil, especially in industries like heavy transport and aviation. High oil prices can incentivize investment in cleaner technologies, but the transition to renewables will take time. The shift isn't just about replacing oil, it's about restructuring entire sectors that currently rely on it. Think about electric vehicles. When oil prices are high, more people consider buying an electric car, which doesn't rely on oil. But to power those cars, we need a robust infrastructure for electricity generation, ideally from renewable sources. In some cases, cheap oil has actually slowed the renewable transition by making alternatives seem less competitive. Since 2014, the low cost of oil discouraged some industries from switching to renewables. So, what's the future of oil prices? Many experts think oil prices will remain high in the short term, but could stabilize or even decline over the long term as we reduce reliance on fossil fuels. But without a coordinated transition, where demand for oil decreases in sync with production, we may face price spikes. If demand remains high and supply struggles to keep up, we could see oil prices soar to $150 or even $200 a barrel temporarily. The key takeaway? Oil prices are unpredictable, but they're not just a fuel cost. They're woven into our economic fabric, influencing inflation, trade balances, and even the speed of our energy transition. Thanks for sticking around. Oil prices might be volatile, but understanding their impact on our lives gives us a clearer view of where the global economy could be headed. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing for more videos on how economics shapes our world. And drop a comment below. How do you think the energy transition will play out in the years to come?